I would like to acknowledge that this video is being filmed on the traditional lands of the Wurrundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander or First Nations people who may be watching this video today. Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a Books Beside My Bed video for you where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading. Before I jump into my reviews, I do just want to briefly mention that this week on my channel is my week of Christmas giving or holiday giving, I suppose. That just means that the 2 videos that follow this one later in the week will include my digital reading journal for 2023, which will have a free downloadable PDF that you can add to any PDF editing app on tablets, and you can use it to create or, piece together your own reading journal. And then I will also have my 2023 reading spreadsheet, which if you've been familiar with my spreadsheets from previous years, this one is very, very similar, but I will have the updated version coming out. So that is the plans for this week. But in terms of last week's reading, from the 4th until the 10th of December, I read a total of 6 things. It was the Queer Lit Readathon. So everything that I read featured queer characters and queer authors. And in fact, I only read 2 authors because I found some comfort reads and I needed to read them because, as I said in previous weeks, I'm a very tired person at the minute and I need short and to the point and comfort reads. And I knew this was going to happen. I warned you guys in my TBR that this was going to happen, but here we are. I'm going to start off with 2 YA titles that I read this week for the Queer Lit Readathon. They are both by Tobias Madden. Tobias Madden is an Australian young adult author. His books are fantastic and I had 2 of them. I had not read his first full-length novel. I've read one of his, I think, short stories before in an anthology, but I have not read his full-length novel, so I figured it was the perfect time to do it. So I read Anything But Fine, which is about Luca, who is in his final year of high school. He is about to audition to get into the Australian Ballet School. It's a huge, huge deal. And then one misstep, quite literally, on a flight of stairs, and he ends up in hospital, and all of those dreams are dashed. He is no longer able to dance. Because he is no longer able to dance, he loses his scholarship to his private school. And so he's now attending the local government high school. There is a massive rivalry between the 2 schools. He is dealing with the trauma of losing his dream, so he's cut off from his previous friends. He's reluctant to make new ones. And the one bright spot in this is that while he is attending physiotherapy, he meets this other kid his own age who's also going through physiotherapy, who happens to be a rower. And there's just this spark between them. Like, Luca is convinced that the guy is straight, but it's just a highlight in his day to see him there. And as it turns out, this person attends his high school. And it's their relationship as it develops from a friendship to maybe something more. It also has a lot to do with Luca's trauma from his accident and recovering from that and recovering his sense of self, about recognizing that maybe some of his best friends from his whole life are maybe not those true friends, but maybe some of them are. And how do you figure that out? How do you make new friends this late in your schooling career, and how do you cope with all of that? He also lives with a single dad. There's a lot of work done around Luca and his dad dealing still with this long-held grief over the loss of Luca's mother. So there's a lot of complicated things going on. I've said before, I love Australian young adult fiction. I am not the target audience, and part of me has to remember that when I'm reading, because there are times when it's like, I don't know if I'm here for the drama of teenage angst, but I also really want to support these authors because I think they are doing incredible work in the young adult space. I think their books are incredibly well worth reading, which is why I then went on to also read Take a Bow, Noah Mitchell. Noah Mitchell is a very awkward teen who got into kind of some trouble with his friends in high school, and as such now he's kind of the year-level pariah. And so he spends most of his time at home in his room playing online games, and there is one online gamer who he loves playing with, who is another queer teen who lives in Ballarat like he does. They don't know any other identifying details about each other because that's the way they want to keep it, but Noah is just falling for this other person. And then he unintentionally figures out how he can work out this other person's identity. And this means getting involved in his mother, who is a musical theatre performer. She is about to star in a performance and she has been pressuring Noah into also performing so that she looks good for the director because they need extra male dance ensemble members. So despite the fact that he really does not like being in musical theatre, he reluctantly agrees and he figures out who the other person is. The only problem is that he doesn't tell the other person that he's figured it out. And so the majority of the book is about catfishing. So be aware of that if you're going into it. This is not my favorite thing to read, I will admit that. But as I said, I wanted to continue reading Tobias Madden because I had heard great things about his writing. So Noah is determined to win over his crush, and then of course everything is revealed, and so there is a lot of work that needs to be done for how you can make up for lying to someone for that period of time. There's also a complicated relationship between Noah and his mother. His mother comes across as, and is, very self-centered. She is in this performance and she is determined to succeed, and the way that she talks to her own children sort of during that period is not fantastic. There is also an on-page affair, and we also work out very quickly that Noah's parents' relationship is not fantastic either. So there's a lot of complicated relationship dynamics, teens going through a lot. That is the hallmark of young adult books. So be aware of that going into it. But Tobias Madden's writing is very, very easy to read, and I will continue to pick up the books that he writes. That's it for young adult titles. The rest of the books that I read were all by McCade. They're part of the Criminal Intentions series, which I knew I was going to absolutely marathon the heck out of. And I'll probably read one more this weekend just because they're short, they're fast, they're very, very easy to get into, despite the fact that they are very, very grisly romantic suspense, sort of police procedural. So be aware of that going into it. If you're not into police procedurals, do not read these. But I grew up on reading books like this and watching TV shows like this. So for me, this is always like I don't want to say a comfort read, because there are questionable things when you're talking about stories featuring the police. But there is a predictability that when I have absolutely no capacity for anything else, I understand exactly what I'm getting. And right now, that's what I need. So the basic premise of the Criminal Intentions series is that they feature seasons. So I'm currently in season 1 of the series. Each season features 13 episodes, and they are episodic novels that follow sort of a TV show structure. Again, probably why I find these so easy to read. Book 1 is episode 1, book 2 is episode 2, and you have a self-contained story arc within each episode, but all of the stories are connected in an overarching seasonal arc. I'm 4 books into the first season and I'm loving it. I love these characters a lot. You have Malcolm, who is a 40-something-year-old detective who is a little bit jaded, who doesn't always do things by the book, but has the best intentions of the local community at heart when he might fudge a rule here or there. He is Jewish, he is bisexual, and we know at the start of the book he has not had a partner for a very long time, and he prefers it that way. He likes to do things his way. But at the start of the book, he is assigned a new partner. Someone who is new to Baltimore, who is transferred out of Los Angeles, who is in his early 30s and outranks Malcolm. And this is Wurrundjeri. We know that he left the Los Angeles Police Department for some unknown reason, which we find out in, I think, book 3. He is very self-contained. He's very, I don't know if reserved is quite the right word, but he is very by the book. And Malcolm is kind of annoyed that this younger guy outranks him, has been forced on him as a partner, and the two have to learn how to work together in the middle of a case that features the gruesome deaths of queer people in their community. There is this immediate chemistry between them, despite the fact that they don't trust each other initially and they don't know what to make of one another. And they have very different styles in approaching an investigation, which ultimately we know is going to complement each other. In the midst of it, they're very put out. They have to work together because they're forced to do things in ways that they wouldn't necessarily have done them on their own. I'm not going to talk about the specific books. I did read The Cardigans, Junk Shop Blues, The Man with the Glass Eye, and Changing Faces. They are pretty gruesome, so if violence and gore and murder and death are not your thing, please skip these. They also deal with really heavy topics. And one thing that I really appreciate about what McCade is doing is that he is including very specific content and trigger warnings for each book at the very start of the book. Like, these are some of the most detailed content warnings I've ever seen, particularly for book 4. In the very first chapter, so every book has a chapter 0, which is from the victim's perspective. In book 4, it was the first time I felt really uncomfortable in any of the books, because the victim is a white male who assaults his wife, intimidates his teenage daughter, has lost his job, and is taking all of that rage out on women, and is just a horrible, horrible person. So by the time he is unalived at the end of the chapter, there is a sense of relief in reading that, but the parts leading up to it were actually quite hard to read. So be aware of that going into it. You could possibly skip it and just start at chapter 1, which would be totally fine. You could do it, but just be aware that, the first chapters can be quite tough, and there are a lot of those sort of content and trigger warnings. So just read all the content warnings beforehand to decide whether or not those are going to be books for you. So I'm happy to read that sort of thing because I'm used to it in sort of the structure of the narrative style. So far in the first 4 books, Malcolm and Xiangxie are still dancing around their feelings for one another, but by God, is that good. I love it. I love their interplay and how they're forced to work together and, you know, figure out their issues. So I'm thoroughly enjoying this. I'm going to continue reading the series. I'm hoping maybe I'll finish season 1 by the end of the year. I've got a couple of other things that I want to try and finish or read before the end of the year as well, but given how short these are, I'm hoping that I can do that because I want to get to the end of season 1 because I'm just enjoying it that much. All right, so that's it for my wrap up this week. In the comments, I'd love to know if you've read any of these books or if you're planning on picking any of them up. If you want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave, I don't know, your favorite emoji. Let's go back with that. We haven't done that for a while. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.